But the only thing that we could do is go out, leave everything on the stage, and be the best band that we could possibly be to the best of our ability. Never go out there and just show up. Respect that audience. Like, make sure that you understand that that audience paid money to come see this show. That says a lot. You have to
It's a
respect
lot of
that. They
money.
could have
It's a
done
lot of
anything.
money for a young person, and it was then, and it still is.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into it that maybe people forget about. We've never forgotten about it.
Bad decisions. Bad decisions. Bad decisions.
Welcome back to the Bad Decisions podcast, where we lead not with celebrity, but with story. I'm your host, Scott Nathan. Dave Snake Sabo is an American guitarist, best known as a founding member of the multi-platinum hard rock band Skid Row. Snake is also a top music manager who's looked after the careers of many artists. Welcome, Snake.
Thank you, buddy. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and you and I go back quite some time. So I'm happy to finally see you again after such a long period of distance between us.
It's been a long, long time, and so much to get into. And I don't know if we've ever discussed this before, but I remember the first moment I met you guys was in, I think, 1989 at the Aladdin Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. And a friend of mine's dad worked with your band's organization. I think he was a tour accountant, Bruce Colbretter. And
Sure.
remember Bruce? So one of
Of
my
course,
college
I love
one of my
Bruce.
college buddies goes, "What are you guys doing this weekend?" And I was like, "I don't know. What do you got?" And he's just like, "You want to go see Bon Jovi and Skid Row all access in Vegas?" And I'm like, "Road trip." So we're there on the casino floor, and you guys are pretty hard to miss. You know, you got Sebastian, you got Rachel, you got you guys did, and then we were a bunch of long hairs too. And I remember we were at the crap table. You guys walked into the casino, and you like acknowledged us. I don't know if it was because we were all long hairs, but I was just like, oh, these guys are actually appreciative of the fact that we were here. And I was like, these are nice guys who I'm rooting for.
Ah, well, thank you. Well, I'll tell you what, things haven't changed. The Rachel, Scotty, and I are still the same guys that we were back then, and that is in large part to do with just the way that we were brought up. We come from these lower middle class families who were blue collar and hard work, great work ethics, and so that's the we were raised to be gracious and to practice humility on a daily basis, and that has stuck with all of us all these years later.
Yeah, well, tell me what it was like, because you and I are contemporaries. I think you're 13 months older than me. Um, what was it like being a kid and suddenly you are every single night playing sold out arenas, when a rock show was a rock show. What was that
Well,
like? And
it was an amazing time to be in a like a hard rock band on tour. It was really I don't know when there was a better time, um, because there was so much camaraderie, but there was competition. Don't get me wrong, but there was great camaraderie, um, and we had our own group of people, the Bon Jovis and the Skid Rows, and there was a lot of other bands in New Jersey as well that were, the Misfits were from Jersey, Nuclear Assault, TT Quick, and I could go on and on. And we all played in the same area, cutting our teeth, whether it was, the Birch Hill in Old Bridge, New Jersey, or Lemoore in Brooklyn. Um, and the Fountain Casino too in Jersey. But uh, at that particular time, when people worshipped the album and the CD, and it was a ritual to wait at the record store for your favorite band's album to come out, and then the whole opening up and pulling out the sleeve and examining every facet of of that piece of product from your favorite band, it was a ritual, and we brought that teenage sort of exuberance into our own music and into our records. So as we got on tour, we felt it was palatable. We felt that these people who were coming to see us went through the exact same thing. And so we felt that we were playing to people who were very much our contemporaries, our brothers, our sisters, you know? And to start having your music that you created in a garage in Toms River, New Jersey, for the most part, to start having your music connect with people was such a mind blowing experience. Because, in thinking in the most basic terms, you know, we wrote these songs, and all of a sudden, you take something from nothing and create something. I should say, through you take nothing and you create something with the hopes that someone will like it somewhere. When more and more people start liking it and start responding to it, it's one of those, sorry about that. It's one
It's
of
good.
those things where you being that, as I said earlier, the way we were raised and how humble we were just, it was unbelievable. And we still feel like that today. Like, you look out in the audience and you saw and see people singing the lyrics to these songs that, you know, you maybe you wrote a year ago, or maybe you wrote 35 years ago, whatever the case may be. And it's still mind blowing to me, and it's still, I'm taken aback, uh, and I have such gratitude for that, and to see that on a nightly basis with our best friends. You know, the guys. You know, John's one of my best friends, and we grew up together, and so to be able to have their band take us along on this ride and give us such a great opportunity, um, and that we made the most of that opportunity. We weren't, you know, we didn't think like, okay, we've made it. We looked at it, this is just the start. Like, okay, we've got a stage that we can play on in front of people, but we've got to go out there and show these people that, you know, we are a band, and we're Skid Row. We're not Bon Jovi Jr. We're not whatever, you know, the
And you
press
didn't
may have
come out.
written about.
You didn't come out to me as most support acts do. You guys came out swinging like it was your last show, wearing your shoes out at every show. And I just remember the passion and enthusiasm. And word got around pretty quickly that you don't just show up for the headliner for this tour. And it
Well,
was
that
really
was,
special.
thank you. And that means that we served our purpose, because from the get-go, we were taught. We had great teachers, like, you know, with the guys in Bon Jovi, especially John and Richie, bestowing their wisdom through their successes and their trials and tribulations, and Doc and Scott McGee, and other bands that we came in contact with through the club scene and whatnot. We were able to see, you know, not just what you do, but what you don't do. And there is the education that you get, that I don't even know if it's available anymore, but the education that you get from playing the clubs and slugging it out every night, man, for, you know, for no money and nothing except the chance to play your music in front of people. That education is priceless. And so that continued for us with every night that we were on that tour. Because I'll tell you what, number one, we videoed every show of ourselves, and we would go back after the Bon Jovi show, because we watched the entire Bon Jovi show too, because that was a learning experience. And then after that, we went back on our bus and we put in the video of our show and we critiqued it along with our management. And on weekends, you know, the John or Richie or both would offer their suggestions and opinions And so it was a constant learning experience for us. And again, invaluable. And we also had this unbelievable burning ambition that we knew what an unbelievable opportunity we had. That did not fall on deaf ears with us. We were very, very cognizant that the opportunity that we were being offered was a once in a lifetime um, offer, and that we have to make the most of it if we're going to have any sort of success. But the only thing that we could do is go out, leave everything on the stage, and be the best band that we could possibly be to the best of our ability. Never go out there and just show up. Respect that audience. Like, make sure that you understand that that audience paid money to come see this show. That says a lot. You have to
It's a
respect
lot of
that. They
money.
could have
It's a
done
lot of
anything.
money for a young person, and it was then, and it still is.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into it that maybe people forget about. We've never forgotten about it to this day. Like, people are making a decision. They can go do anything that they want, but they decided that on that particular night, they were going to come see this show. They were going to spend the money to do it. If they had to get babysitters, they would do it. If they had to get a ride, if they had to take public transportation, whatever it is, they had to set aside their time and their money for this show. So to me, they deserve everything I've got and more. And
Agreed.
we all feel and felt that way. And so we went out every night and did our best to show them the proper respect that they deserve as an audience. And I think it translated. I think people knew and know how genuine we are as a band and as people, and that it was never about the money. We always felt that if we did what we were capable of doing, and we were able to affect the amount of people that we hoped we could affect, then the money would come. But that was second. The money was second. The main thing was the music that we created being genuine, and that our performances were to the very best of our ability, and that we would never go out and just phone it in. That wasn't in our vocabulary.
Yeah, I remember. I'll never forget this bit that John used to do during every show, where it would just be him on the microphone, and he would point all the way up, and there'd be a spot up on the top balcony. He goes, "You guys up there, this is for you because I'm one of you," and that's also relatable because unless you grew up, the child of a rich or famous person. You knew what it was like to have to to be in the cheap seats and still be really grateful to be there. And I always thought that was so moving. And then, I'd never really spent, time backstage in the inner circle of rock and roll bands before. And then, I quickly figured out the hierarchy of your guys' organization, and I buddied up to Tony Bon Jovi. And then we just started showing up in other cities everywhere. And he'd be like, "Oh, you guys are here again? Yeah, here's passes. Here you go." And
Well, see, yeah, it's
and I
funny that you should
just
talk.
remember how nice, because you guys were like, I felt like you were a bunch of neighborhood guys. You had
We
you
were
guys, you had the Bon Jovi guys, you had John's dad, the hairdresser. What was his name again?
John, John
Right,
Senior.
great hair. Um, and yeah, and I just remember in Doc, and it's like you guys, it was like The Godfather. Like you guys were all like a family.
Well, I mean, I grew up with John. I've known him since I was like 10 or 11 years old. And I was, that their family is my family. I mean, I would go and have Sunday dinners with them. And, Mr. Bonge would make his famous, gravy, as the Italians call it, and every Sunday. And so I was there when Matt was born. It was Tony was in our other group of friends that we had. I had a group of friends who were older. That was John and all those guys, and then a group of friends that were my age or a little bit younger. And Tony was a part of that. And still to this day, it's we're still family. Myself and the three brothers, and so that wasn't a facade. That was for real. And we've had arguments and disagreements like family, and
Of course.
we've gone at each other's throats every once in a while. But at the end of the day, like that whole thing of seeming like neighbors or whatever, it's because we were and still have that mentality. Like we talk about stuff with each other that stays amongst ourselves because you have that familial trust that you're not going to put that in someone else's hands. But interesting that you talk about the quote unquote cheap seats. Um, that's because we would go to shows together, and that's where we would sit. Like
Sure.
that was John and I saw Kiss together December 16th, 1977. It was my first show at Madison Square Garden, and I was 13 years old. He was 15. And we took the train in from South Amboy, New Jersey, that took you right underneath Madison Square Garden, and it completely changed my life. Was not playing guitar at that time, was not doing anything involved with music. John had already started playing guitar, and all of a sudden, I walked out of there. I walked in there being a jock and being like had aspirations of playing pro baseball and whatnot. And I walked out of there going, well, so much for sports. I want to do that. I want to be in
Okay.
that circus. I want to
Okay. This is
affect
this
people that way.
this is unbelievable because my first show was Kiss 77, a live 2 tour, Chicago
Yep.
Stadium. And my
There you go.
dad was a light bulb salesman, and one of his clients was the Chicago Stadium. So he knew the engineer there, so he got us into Kiss. And we
Do
went
you remember who opened up?
If you told me, I'd probably remember.
Well, in New York, it was Billy Squires' band, Piper.
I feel like I would remember that, but I'm not sure.
And then there was, for part of that tour, there was a band called New England that opened up.
Okay. I mean, I was 12. I don't remember, but I'm going to look it up after this. But I remember, so that was my first show. I got off to a very good start with concerts. My second show was Queen's News of the World Tour.
Oh my God.
And I always tell people, like, they're like, what's the best concert you ever saw? And I said, the first best concert I ever saw was the first time I saw Queen. The second best concert I ever saw was the second time I saw Queen with Freddie. But Kiss
Well,
Kiss was really, really something and meant so much to me. And you. And then I remember my dad had this like Italian barber friend named Phil the Barber, and he was like a real 70s Chicago Italian guy, the hairy chest and the gold horn and the beard. And I remember one day I'm sitting in the chair, I got the cape on, little ginger kid. And my dad says to the barber, he goes, I think my son's one of them funny boys. I think he's a fruitcake. And the barber says, why do you think that? And I go, you guys, I'm sitting right here. He goes, makes me take him to these rock concerts. Has me take him to this band. They're wearing high heels and makeup. What are they called, Scott? And I'm like, Kiss, Dad. He goes, yeah, a bunch of fruitcakes. And he goes, and then he takes me to this guy with like the mustache and the leotard. What are they called? And I'm like, Queen. He's like, yeah, I think my son's one of these funny boys. But I too was bitten by the rock bug from the same tour as you were, which is amazing.
Oh, dude, that's really funny, man. Imagine if that sort of vernacular was occurring today. I don't think your dad would be canceled.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I a few months back, well, maybe 6 months back, I was in Malibu, and I ran into the Simmonses. And I know Shannon a little bit. So I'm like, hey, Shan, what's going on? She's like, did you know it's our daughter's birthday? And I'm like, oh, happy birthday. And, Gene's a ball breaker,
Oh, yeah.
So we just came from the beach, and I'm wearing flip-flops and board shorts, and I'm with two girls. And he goes, nice shorts. Do they make them in men? And I go, Gene.
Of course.
I go, Gene, you were my first concert. Please don't ruin this. And he goes, do they come in men's? He goes, it's great to meet me, isn't it? And I'm like, can you please just don't ruin this?
That's typical. Yep, that's typical Gene. We've had the great. We've been greatly fortunate to play a lot with them, and I think we have the honor of being the only band that played on both of their farewell tours, and we played in 2000 with the original band doing their farewell tour, and then a couple of years ago, their farewell tour in Europe, we played with them on a bunch of dates as well. So uh, we're very fortunate to have become friendly with them, and they've been so kind and generous to us throughout the years, and I just have great affection for all of them. They're Gene lets me get away with everything. I'm just so verbally abusive, and he lets me get away with it because I guess he gets a kick out of it from me, and I'm so thankful that he is that way with me. So I just have, again, everybody has their opinions on Gene and his opinions and stuff, but at the end of the day, I think the world of the guy, and Paul Stanley could not be a sweeter gentleman. And Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer are fantastic people, as are Ace and Peter. I just have a great affinity and affection for all of them.
But you also managed them too, didn't you? Or
Doc
very.
did. Doc did. I existed in the periphery. So I didn't have anything like, I wasn't dealing with them on a daily basis or anything like that. But our company, obviously, Doc was very hands on, and he was with them every day. So we would be a part of it. Myself and other people in our office at the time in LA. Um, and it was great. It was great to see sort of how their organization ran, and it taught me a lot as well. And this was after we had first toured with them in 2000. So on that end of the spectrum, I guess this was probably around '06 or '07 or something like that. So it was great. It was great, again, fantastic education, and I seem to be really fortunate to be put in these situations where I am able to absorb these lessons, and and maybe that's because I'm part of it is because I'm always aware that there's something to learn somewhere, and I'm a big fan of gaining knowledge, and I've been really, again, fortunate to be put in situations where there's a lot of knowledge to be sponged up by people who are smarter and more successful than you.
Yeah. I want to talk about your relationship with Doc a little bit if we could. Like
Yeah.
I was a college kid reading Billboard and watching MTV, and I was acutely aware of this guy and his power and all the Motley Crue and the Scorpions and Bon Jovi and whoever else he managed. And I remember like thinking like, oh, I'm getting a degree in psychology, but this is the guy that I want to be. And I just want to know, like, you've known him since your 20s, and you still do. So talk about your relationship with him and what you've learned along the way. What makes him a different breed of cat?
Well, to start off, like he is my older brother. He's my older brother. He's my mentor. He's my protector. He's my he's one of my best friends. I have such an amount of love for him, and obviously respect and admiration. Um, we, I was one of those guys, and I still am, who read every thing on the back of an album, uh, every credit, even stuff that I didn't even know what it meant. Like, what's an executive producer? Like
Or a
I don't know
mastering guy.
exactly.
But
Um,
we all knew Bob Ludwig and Bernie Grunman. We all just knew those names. We didn't know. I didn't know what
well,
they did, but we all knew those names.
exactly. That's exactly right. So I remember getting the first Motley Crue record, Too Fast for Love. And I had both the versions, the one that was on Leather Records and then the one that came out on Elektra. And so on the one, I don't know if it said it on Elektra, on the Leather Records one, but on Elektra, It said management, Doc McGee and Doug Thaler. And I went, okay. And I love that album, everything about it. I love the cover. I love the back cover. I thought it was, I was jealous because they were from LA and they weren't an East Coast band. But I loved it. And immediately in my cover band, we're learning Livewire and Take Me to the Top. And, there was a bunch of other stuff on there that's escaping me right now. But it was very influential on me as I had just begun my journey into being a musician. And so, okay, Doc McGee, Doug Thaler. Then cut to Shout at the Devil comes out or is coming out. At the same time, John calls me up and goes, "Yeah, I've got a manager." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, it's this guy Doc McGee." And I'm going, "What?" And I think John expected me to be happy for him. And I was like, "The guy that manages Motley Crue?" And he goes, "Yeah, you've heard of him." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And I'm like, oh, crap. Now this guy who is mythical to me is managing Motley Crue. I mean, he's managing John Bon Jovi. And so, and then John got me a copy of Shout at the Devil, and I just could not believe that packaging, even though I didn't know what packaging meant. But I just couldn't believe it. The embossed pentagram on the cover, open it up as the 40. I mean, it was just
Killer.
and then it was management Doc McGee. I'm going, wow. Shortly thereafter, I'm 19 years old. John goes, why don't you come up the street? He was at his parents' house. Come up the street and meet my manager Doc. I'm going, oh my God. So immediately in my ambitious brain, I'm going to figure out a way to have this guy manage me. And so we're hanging out in the backyard and there's a pool back there. We're hanging out by the pool. And the Doc's sitting there on kind of like a lounge chair and stuff, and it's Doc, John, myself, and John says I got to go inside for a second. So I'm like, okay, this is my shot. So I lay it on thick with Doc. I'm like, listen, man, I want to tell you right now, I'm the best guitar player around here. I'm going to be a huge star. I'm going to have the biggest band in the world, and I'm just laying everything on him.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he let me spew off what probably seemed about an hour and a half to him, but it was more like around 5 to 10 minutes of me patting myself on the back and selling myself and like I was on QVC or something. And all of a sudden he lets me finish and kind of gave me like that look like, are you finished now? And I kind of look at him like that, and he goes, that's great. You want to go inside and get me a beer? And I went, oh my God. It was like Fred Flintstone at Mr. Slate's office. It was like, boo. And we still laugh about that story because it really, it taught me a lot in that brief moment. Like, like Joe Perry said, man, you gotta let the music do the talking. Like I could sit there and I could bloviate all I want, but in reality, you gotta have the goods to back it up.
That's it. That's
And
it. You gotta have the songs. You have to have the lyrics. You have to have it all, and nothing, no amount of talk.
but
That's why
ironically, if I don't mean to interrupt you, but ironically, and that day I told him, and you will be managing me, and that's when he kind of went, "That's a great story." Go inside and get me a beer. 3 years later, he was managing us.
Well, I had my own stalking plan of my own with him, and it didn't exactly work out, but it was hilarious. So you guys, this was I think Rosemont Horizon, Chicago. You guys were on stage, and I'm in the pit in front, and I see Doc come around the corner from the side, And I'm like, this is my chance. Skid Row's playing. Bon Jovi's probably just chilling. I'm going to go back there. I'm going to corner him in the production office. So I walk back there and I'm like, Doc, Scott Nathan, how you doing? He goes, hey, how you doing? And I said, I want to work with you. And he goes, let me ask you a question. He goes, you want some music business advice? I said, yes, I would. He goes, don't go into jazz. And I said, I wasn't planning on it. And he goes, do you know how much the richest guy in the history of jazz made? And I said, no, tell me. And he goes, $1. I was like, this guy's so funny. He goes, and then he goes, what are you doing right now, Scott? And I said, nothing, Doc. I thought he was like asking me to hang out. And he opens up a metal filing cabinet and hands me a stack of backstage passes this thick. And he goes, go meet some girls. And then he goes, and then when I'm walking out the door, he goes, Scott? I go, yeah. He goes, no guys. I said, okay, I have my assignment. And I just spent the whole evening going through the arena, like passing passes out to hot girls.
That
was
is
funny.
so funny. Well,
You know, and I'm like
the
23
good
years
thing
old.
about Doc, yeah, the good thing about Doc is that, and going back to your original question, the good thing about Doc is that he's always maintained that same enthralling sense of humor, and he always had a way of ingratiating himself with everybody that he met. He never. He's always been one of those people that would never brush anybody aside, at least from what I saw. Um, and he always talked to people and was so kind to people with a big smile on his face, as if that person was the best person he could be possibly meeting at that particular point. And so seeing him exhibit that at such a young age, um, just sort of re-instilled in me that the way that we were taught to treat people and the way that we did treat people was the right way of going about it. And um, I, as time grew on and being able to be around Doc when he would be doing business and stuff like that, like just, settling after a show, he would allow me to, be around for like the merch stuff or something like that for a little while. And and then I was, would be taught about what the sheets are and what they all mean, and this, and everything was done. There was really no computer action going on then. It was all pen and paper and whatnot. So every night we would collect these, the merchandise sales sheets, and so I was able to see how we were progressing as a band by how many T-shirts that we were selling. And I would go to Doc and I'd be kind of a wise ass, and then I go, we're catching up to Homeboy, meaning John, and he
Yeah.
goes, just remember one thing, and he would always come up with a great way of setting me straight. He goes, just remember one thing. Go get yourself a ticket to the show and see whose name is on top. And I went, okay,
Yeah.
you're right.
Fair.
and so
So
he
go
would
ahead.
humble me, even though I was, I absolutely was humbled. But that's kind of my humor is like, sort of a little sharp edged here and there, but just taking a piss out of people in the nicest possible way. And
Yeah, it's like a show of affection.
right. And
So
John
what's
and
your
I
memory?
are still like this with each other, and so are Doc and I. He always, whenever he calls me up, he's like, "Hey, shitbag." Like that's our relationship.
Yeah, no, and
But
I
can I
remember you
can I
guys
say?
used to. Please.
I want to say one thing. There was a myriad of things that Doc taught me throughout when we were on tour with Bon Jovi, when through him managing us. Uh, the way I saw him interact with people and the way he garnered so much respect um, was for a number of reasons. One, he never talked about anything that he wasn't knowledgeable about, and he was knowledgeable about a great many of things. He studied, man. Like he studied and he learned from every situation and experience that he had. When he was a young guy in his 20s, walking around the halls of different record labels, he knew what people he needed to meet at those labels. Like he knew he needed to be friends with Ahmet Ertegun. He knew he needed to be friends with David Geffen. He knew, you know, he needed to be friends with these different heads and even guys like Doug Morris and so on and so forth. And that was he's maintained that throughout his whole career because he always treated them with respect, but he also could back that up with a great amount of knowledge of the business and also an extremely creative mind in ways to make something bigger, more profitable, more appealing to an audience. Like he just always thought bigger than everybody else thought. But this is one great lesson that he taught me that I will never ever forget. And I think about this all the time, like when I'm doing a contract with a potential, whether it be a label or a merch company or whatever, or an endorsement deal, whatever it is. He taught me that when you sit there and you're negotiating with somebody, and just to use that whole idea of being across the table from somebody, you're going back and forth or whatever, he goes, never ever ever look at that other person across the table as an adversary. Look at them as a partner. And I went, man, that changes everything, because kind of when you grow up, especially in the New York, New Jersey area, you're taught this, you fight, and so that'll give you sort of, you kind of bring that into every aspect of your world. And so if you're sitting across the table and you're negotiating, the first thing that pops into your mind because of that upbringing is, I'm gonna win this negotiation. And he taught me that, well, the win occurs when you both win, when you both forge a partnership for the greater good of your client and their entity, and that you forge a relationship that lasts decades. And so
Yep.
you can continue doing business together and continue profiting and maybe build a great friendship as well and have these people on your side for life, and not for any other reason than it's just the right human decent thing to do. And
Yeah, it's
I
hard. It's
thought,
hard getting new clients. It's easy to keep them if you just be honorable and decent.
and that's it, with him having that conversation with me and instilling that in me. I mean, that was a light bulb moment, that really, and it tapped into whom I already was, uh, in my character and in my being. I just was underneath this false impression that you had to be something else when you got into that aspect of the music business, that you had to be a tough guy, and you had to have the advantage and be able to beat people up and things like that. And it was
Sure.
completely the opposite of that. And I am eternally grateful for that lesson, but there's a million more. That and John, the same thing. I mean, the lessons, John's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, and the same thing with Doc. Much much smarter than I'll ever be. And I've been lucky where they have, bestowed their wisdom and their experience and their knowledge, um, to me, and have passed that down. And hopefully I've been able to take that and, do them proudly with the way that I've exhibited myself throughout the history of my involvement in the music business as a guitar player, as a songwriter, a band member, a manager, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. What's your memory, Snake, of the Moscow Music and Peace Festival? Am I calling? Is that what it's called?
The Moscow Music Peace Festival.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, tell me about that because that was a big deal. There was some controversy around it, but it was a huge coup. So tell the younger folks about it.
Well, I believe it was August of 1989, and Doc had got into some trouble where he was brought into this government lawsuit that involved some pretty heavy people, like Manuel Noriega, and but there was this so many indictments regarding whatever nefarious activity that they were involved in. These were, you're talking about, leaders of these small countries, and apparently, what if I remember correctly, like Doc basically introduced one person to another person who were, you know, and that was it. But somehow, on the very last indictment, it was a John Doe indictment, and it turned out to be Doc. Doc found himself in this situation, and there was a prosecutor and a judge who were looking, from what I remember, looking to make an example of him. And he was like, look, instead of, whatever you're thinking that might be a punishment for me, why don't you let me do what I do best? And let me put on this incredible show the message will be, to abstain from drugs and alcohol. We'll set up a foundation called the Make a Difference Foundation. And we'll have these artists that are in, the hard rock community that are, quite famous or whatever, and that he's got strong relationships with. And we'll do it in Russia. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, wow, this is crazy. And once again, Doc thinking big. And we'll get the Russian government involved. It'll be a great way to bring both countries together in a sense. And at this time, he had a relationship with the person by the name of Stas Nauman, and I believe Stas was like head of the arts and culture, if you will, commission branch, whatever, of the Russian government. So Doc had a relationship with him, and this is around the time that Mikhail Gorbachev is starting to realize a broader, more democratic world vision. So this is a great timing. And so you know, Doc went to Sharon Osbourne. Can we get, Ozzy? She's like, of course, because they're old friends. And
Sure.
him and Doug managed Motley Crue. He managed us and Bon Jovi. He had helped Cinderella out, got them on the bill, and Scorpions he was managing.
Yeah.
And then he put a Russian band on the bill, Gorky Park, as
Gorky
well.
Park when he had the Bella Leica shaped guitar, I thought was kind of fun.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we all were like, of course. What a great idea. What a great thing to be a part of it. And then he's like, yeah. And we'll do a pay-per-view. And it was on like, I don't know, like 180 different countries, and it was
It was unreal.
just, it was again, I'm August of 89, I'm 23 years old, and or 24 years old, excuse me. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, how in the world did I go, you know, from being a high school senior 7 years ago and being taught like this is the enemy, meaning the Russians, to playing at Lenin Stadium to 72,000 people or whatever it was, 2 nights. And I remember the plane flight over there. It started, it was like I don't know, a huge plane, 747 or whatever, and it started in California, and Ozzy and Geezer and Zach and Randy Castillo and their crew and blah 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 get on that flight, and then it goes to and Motley Crue as well, and then it goes to Newark, if I'm not mistaken, and it picks us up and Bon Jovi up and Cinderella up, and so we're having these different stops along the way, and we had to pick up the Scorpions, and
Germany.
it was well, I think they might have. It was they might have been in England at the time, but yeah, it was.
Okay, but
It's probably Germany. It doesn't matter.
it's
And
so
then
funny. It's like a carpool, like
yeah,
a
and
metal
so
carpool.
Zach and I have been friends since I worked at the music store in Toms River, New Jersey. It's where we originally met when he was like 18 and I was 20, 21 years old. And we had remained friends, and he obviously went on to great success with Ozzy and still to this day. But we hadn't seen each other in a while. And back then, Zach and I, we could drink. And we weren't supposed to have any alcohol on this flight. Now, ironically enough, to be honest, the only people sober on that flight, or I should say, the only band members that weren't drinking on that flight were Motley Crue. Motley Crue had just gotten sober, and they were the only ones. And God bless them, because Zach and I were putting it down. There were other people there that were passing out from it. I mean, it was not a sober flight for 90% of the people on there. So that being said, Zach and I were having a time of our lives, and we spent the
Zach is a
whole
machine.
yeah.
I just went a month ago to see I did his wife's podcast, Barb and Daniela Clark's podcast as a guest, and so Barb hits me up and she knows I love concerts, so she's like, "Do you want to come up to Ventura and see Zach Sabbath?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" So I
Yeah,
drive up there and hang with them, and it's just that Zach has more energy than I've ever had as a child.
he's always been that way. It's the way he's always been, and what's one of the things I love about him. Whether he would, he's sober and he's still the same guy. Like, that hasn't changed him. It's the only thing is he doesn't drink,
Yeah.
but he's still the same Zach, and I love that about him. And he and I, though, back then, we were on a tear. We were making up for lost time. And so we get to Russia. There's a press conference. There's like this get together at their version of the Hard Rock. And then after that, we continue going at the hotel, and we probably annoyed everybody in that hotel that we possibly could. But we were just soaking up the moment, man. We really were. Like, we honestly were taken aback by the fact that here are two Jersey kids in excuse me, in the Hotel Ukraine, getting ready to play Lenin Stadium in front of a live audience of over 70,000 people and however many else around the world. So it was awe-inspiring, and it was definitely humbling. Excuse me, but it was something like I look back and sometimes I see performances online. They put them up there, and I'm like, wow, this is really something. Like the stage spinning around for each band to come out to, and the stars and on the back the white stars with the blue backdrop and the red, and it's just
I'll never forget
it.
just the visual image. There's this one thing where it's John wearing the Ushanka, the Russian fur hat, and he's marching with the entire like Russian army behind him. And I was like, that's maybe the most powerful rock and roll image I have ever seen. And I think he gave a big salute.
It was crazy, man, because these people did not know a lot of the bands that were there. They knew the Scorpions, they knew Ozzy, but they definitely didn't know us. but that was fine. It wasn't about that. It was about excuse me. It was about camaraderie and unification of different cultures. And I'll the, there were several things that really stood out. One, my God, were the Scorpions great? But they always are.
Yeah.
Two, being able to see Ozzy from the side of the stage and see Zach uh, and Geezer and Randy from the side of the stage was just I didn't realize how monumental that would be until later on in life. And uh, become being friends with the Motley guys and watching them and being on the same bill as them, and we were getting ready to tour with them in Europe after that. Um, but one of the things that was really wild is that this concert was in 1989. In 1980, they had the Olympics uh, in Russia, and we boycotted them. The United States boycotted
Oh
the
yeah.
Olympics.
Right.
So in 1988, Russia boycotted the Olympics that were in the United States. Now, in this stadium, it was an Olympic stadium. To my right was where the Olympic torch was lit. That hadn't been lit since 1980. Before we went on, they lit that Olympic torch, and I was like, "This is." I think that being, I think I'm the only one who may have understood how monumental that was, at least to me. Knowing, being a sports guy, knowing the history of boycotts and the tension and remembering even as a kid the meetings between Leonid Brezhnev and Richard Nixon and how that just felt so weird and wrong. And then all of a sudden you've got this guy, Gorbachev, who's, man, this guy's different. He's allowing this to happen. This is wild. And so there was an overwhelming feeling within me anyway that we were in the midst of global change, and we were witnessing it through what we do for a living. Just the idea that we were allowed to do this on the scale that we were, and that it came off, and it was successful.
And it was politically
Um,
important. It's like, you guys really helped to thaw the Cold War, I think.
I mean, I think that this, the whole process of putting that festival together and the goodwill that was established through the process of putting this thing together and then having it go off as smoothly for the most part and as positively as it did, I think was certainly helpful in the overall scheme of things. Now, it was a small part, obviously. We're none of those bands that were on that stage, to my recollection, were political by nature in any way. I mean, I'm sure we all had our own opinions, but it was all, you know, we personal. We kept that to ourselves. We were like, holy crap, man, we're in Russia. Like, it was heavy, man. It was really heavy. And to see the architecture and just the way, how much different our lives were than their lives were at that particular time in the world, it was a vast difference from the way I lived. And I still had no money, man. I was still, we were selling records, but I didn't see a dime yet. None of us did. So it wasn't like I was living lavishly by any stretch. But I certainly was reminded of my freedoms and my, the liberty that I was lucky enough to have a part of my everyday life, and the all the freedoms that are bestowed upon us. So it was really wild to have that realization And it was really wild to see this big bad wolf that we were taught moving in that direction. And it was really something. But I have to add something really quick too.
Please,
And
please.
there was a huge moment that happened for me personally, and it showed me something about the power and the strength of music. Now, obviously, this festival exhibits that. It shows that the great work that music can do and can accomplish as far as diplomacy and bridging gaps. Um, we were in Red Square about 2, 3 in the morning, and David Bryan from Bon Jovi was there, and some guys from some of the other bands were there. And there was a young guy, maybe a little bit younger than me, playing acoustic guitar, and he's playing "Yesterday" by the Beatles. This guy can't speak a lick of English, but he's singing "Yesterday" by the Beatles, and for like a millisecond, I catch eye contact with this guy, and it hits me. And I'm like, this is one of the most amazing moments of my life because I'm realizing that music truly is the great communicator. Like, above and beyond anything else, man. Like, this guy just spoke volumes to me by being a Russian kid in Red Square at 3 in the morning playing a Beatles song and not having any clue who we are, and I don't have any clue who he is, but I just want to run up that dude and give him a hug and have a shot of vodka with him. I mean, it was really profound. And I when I walked away from there and realized how profound it was, and that I really finally got it, like how powerful music is and how it really is. It breaks down barriers, man. It bridges gaps. It breaks down walls. It's really the ultimate communicator, and I've that's lived with me every day since then. And so, I that kid probably taught me one of the greatest lessons of my life.
Isn't it funny though? The more you see the world, the more you travel, you realize none of us are that different. We all want the same things. We all want to be happy. We want to be loved. We want to be fulfilled, and we want to feel safe. And it's really it's the politicians that cause most of the rifts. But music is a great uniter. But it's George Carlin had a bit about this where he'd say human beings one on one are amazing. Human beings in groups are dangerous.
Yeah, that's so true, man. It's like, you know what? I think that, and not to get too, like, I don't know, deep or whatever, but I'm certainly pretty shallow. But the thing the thing for me is that the desire and the hunger for power is the thing that uh, puts a blanket over the need and desire for community and for love and for acceptance. And so, uh, I think that power in the wrong hands, and mostly it's in the wrong hands, is a real detriment to the advancement of us really basically being able to have the opportunity just to be kind to people. Because it's really easy to be kind to people, man. And it's really easy to smile. And it's really easy to show graciousness to people and humility and to be able to be of service to people. So power and greed are one of those things where I've always had a tendency to be repulsed by when put in the wrong hands. Well, greed is never a good thing, but power in the right hands is a good thing that people can get things done that are beneficial to the community, to people at large and stuff. So, but you just be the best person that you could be, and hopefully that's infectious.
Yeah. So what's the current iteration of Skid Row, and what does the horizon look like for the future?
Well, we're on the lookout right now for our next singer because the Eric, our last singer, was great. We did a record with him. We toured with him a lot, and he fantastic singer, um, and a really good guy. But Eric was coming off of just dealing with leukemia, and with that, like a cancer survivor, he had to get bone marrow transplants, and luckily it worked, and he was able to beat the cancer. But with the bone marrow transplant, it's like you're instituting a brand new immune system to your body. So you essentially have the immune system of a young child, and with that comes a myriad of issues.
Sure.
What would be a cold to us could be, the equivalent of pneumonia to him. So the thing is that he needed to be at as close to his doctors as possible, and they're based in Sweden as he is. I think he felt that he might have been further along in his recovery than he was, and we tour a lot. Like we tour a lot, but in the midst of that, because of his health, we would have to postpone or cancel legs of tours, and it was becoming a situation where we all had to address it like this. We can't keep booking stuff and then canceling it. And
Yeah.
health and family are number one. That's
Sure.
just that goes without saying. So in the attempt to make this work, to see how we could make this work, um, again, his doctors and hospital being in Stockholm, us being in the States, we attempted to figure out a way of touring, come up with a touring cycle, if you will, or schedule that would benefit him, make him feel comfortable, and that if he gets sick, he could be treated quickly and stuff like that, um, and still be able to go out and play shows on a fairly regular basis. And with the doctor's suggestion and what we could do as a band, it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
And a lot of it has to do, like, again, as much as we love this, and which we do, of course, but you do this for a living, so you still have to figure out a way where you're not breaking even, where you got to pay the bills, and you got families, and everyone does. So we weren't able to come up with a solution that could make sure that he's okay from a health perspective, and yet still go out and make a living playing music. And so
Yeah.
at Skid Row. So right now we've been in the process of we've been slowly taking our time, but we've been auditioning quite a few people. We're still auditioning. I have a feeling that we're pretty close, but we're we're not jumping the gun real fast. We're just gonna make sure that we are 100% in agreement and feel, not just with the guys in the band, with the people that work around us as well. And so that's where we're at. And we have some more people coming in the next couple of weeks to get in a room and jam, and we'll see what happens. But anybody listening to this, if they feel that they've got the goods, most certainly reach out. We're easy to find on social media, and just say, "Hey, I'm your guy," or girl, because it's wide open. I mean, when we did 4 shows with Lizzie Hale, and she was so unbelievable, she completely opened up my eyes to what these songs could be from a different viewpoint and a different voice. And it was a great education. And she is just one of those talents that is undeniable. And I feel very, very fortunate that we were able to do a bunch of shows with her, because she's just an absolute talent beyond what I ever could have thought.
Yeah, I want to dip back into the whole band thing, because you grow up and you're like, why can't these guys get along? They're all rich, they're all successful, they're all famous, about every band ever. And I always say, think about how difficult it is to coexist with one partner in life. Now bring in a handful of people with a crew and the stress of the road and all of that. What is the secret to you, Snake Sabo, to leading a band, not just leading a band, but keeping one together mostly for more than 3 decades?
Well, I think the thing for us is that Rachel and I started this thing in like late 1985, and Scotty joined in October of '86. And then from that point on, it was several different changes, obviously, throughout the 36-year history, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, I think the thing that kept the three of us together is that we always had the same mindset, the same vision, the same goals, and the same way of kind of going about them. We felt that, again, this goes back to how we were raised, and the three of us were raised very similarly. And ironically, our first concerts were all within that same week that I saw Kiss at Madison Square Garden. Scotty saw Kiss at Nassau Coliseum that same week, and Rachel saw Kiss at the Philadelphia Spectrum that same week.
It's
So
unbelievable, yeah.
we were connected already before we even knew it, since we were age 13. 13 or whatever they were, for 13, 14. But we always maintained the same sort of mantra and viewpoints with each other, that when we started the band, it was always about because you love music. It was about because you wanted to express yourself. And that's what we were able to do by writing our own music. And we also knew that if we were writing for somebody else, like a certain segment of the population or whatever, and we weren't being genuine, what was the point of doing it? It's like we had to be, and we still are, true to ourselves as far as how we express ourselves, and not trying to placate any sort of trend or genre or whatever. We always wrote and played what we loved, uh, starting with Kiss and then branching off from there. Um,
I
and
want to
that
ask you a
still is
writing question.
true. 1 second. The
Yeah,
one
go
thing
ahead.
that we said, though, one of the things that we said at the very beginning was that if it's ever not fun, then either we'll stop doing it, or we'll fix why it's not fun. And so when when changes occur within the framework of the band, that's pretty much the reason why. But I mean, there's been other instances. Obviously, Eric's health, that was completely, unavoidable due to his situation.
Yeah,
But with a lot of the other situations, just with certain people, it wasn't fun, and it became a miserable experience. And
sure.
I'm not going to go out there and do it and fake it for the blank check. I've never been about that. Rachel's never been about that, and Scotty's never been about that. So we're not going to do it. And there's been a lot of people say, "Oh, just do it for the money." It's like, man, no, I'm just not built like that, man. And I'm smart enough. We all are smart enough to make sure that we've done okay with what we've made. And look, I don't live lavishly by any stretch of the imagination, but I could take care of my family. I don't worry about the future, from a monetary standpoint. And so I'm really fortunate like that.
Yeah,
And
you are.
And it's because that's been my viewpoint all along. It's never been about we've got to make a buck. It was always been about if we do things and we're genuine and we stay true to our character, to our spirit, and this is going to sound weird, and we are selfish songwriters. And what I mean by that is that we are writing for ourselves. We're not writing for anybody else. And then you hope that the way that you translate how you feel through music and lyrics and melodies and performance will have a positive effect on people, and thus they'll want to come see and hear this music. And that's what we've always done.
Well, can I ask you quickly about your process? There are you look at, we're in an era right now where there is an endless number of YouTubers and guitar players who are kind of like video gamers, where they know their way around a fretboard, but they don't make me dance and they don't make me cry. And I remember the first time I heard you play, I was expecting like this traditional heavy metal guy, and I was like, this guy sounds more like Aerosmith. Like, do
Thank
your
you.
songs? You're very welcome. Do your songs begin with a riff that you find to be memorable and infectious? Tell me how your collaboration process and how you construct a song is, or is it different?
Well, it's different all the time. Uh, our writing sessions occur or always start like with Rachel and I get together. It always starts with a conversation. We'll sit there, we'll have a conversation about what's happening in the world, what's happening in our personal lives, what's happening with our friends, like just what's happening with the Yankees and the Mets. Like it could be anything.
Sure, sure.
It's just a starter. It's where we jump off and or jump into it, I should say. And so from there, somehow it leads to what inevitably is. So, what do you want to work on? And it's that conversation will sort of guide us to the choice that we make as far as what we want to work on, and that could be any number of things. We all collect riffs and put them on our phones, and then they're there for however long. So I could sit there and go, well, I came up with this riff, or Rachel could go, you played this riff at sound check a year ago. Okay, let's find it. Or I got this song title, and this is what I'm envisioning. Okay, and then I'll go, all right, okay, that's cool. Like, I like that. I like what your vision is. So let's work on that. Or I wrote these lyrics, you know, what do you make of this? Oh, wow. Okay. Or I got a chord progression and a melody for just a chorus. Oh, okay. So it could start. Or I read this article in the paper and I started thinking, and then that starts just with a concept. So it could start with a lyric, a riff, a melody, a concept, any of the above. We've never had a sort of set way of doing things. There was never a blueprint. It was whatever gets it started. It's more important to finish it as something great. Here's a weird example. On our last record that we did, with the one with Eric, the gang's all here. There's a last song on the record is a song called October Song. Now there was a bunch of stuff going on in our personal lives at that particular time. One of the things that was going on was that Rachel had just recently lost his father, who they were very, 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 very close. I happened to be staying at Rachel's house for I guess it was like a week or something like that, and that was we were gonna write for that particular week. And that one morning, I'm upstairs in the bedroom I was sleeping. I had the door open. I had an acoustic guitar. Now there's this riff that I had been playing, got to be 10 years now. that I use to kind of warm up on an acoustic guitar. It's this weird fingering, and it helps me to get loose and works my dexterity and so on and so forth. And throughout every time I've played it throughout the 10 years, everyone, Scotty and Rachel, have said, "My God, dude, you got to do something with that." And I had nothing, a brick wall the whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm upstairs playing it, and to warm up, cut to 3 hours later, we get in the Rachel's studio down the hallway, and we sit down, and I go, we're having a conversation and blah blah blah, and we're like, okay. I go, so what do you want to work on? He goes, that fucking thing you've been playing for 10 years that you played in your bedroom like this morning. I go, really? And he goes, yeah. And so I go, okay. I go, dude, obviously I've been stuck on this for 10 years. I don't know. And so I start playing it, and then he starts going, what about this? And goes, why don't you just go to this here? Why don't you stay on that there? And I'm going, ooh, okay. Now this is opening up my brain. Now my window is starting to crack open a bit. And so we
Yeah.
go back and forth kind of like that. And we decide that we're going to call the song October Song because that's the month that we were writing it in.
All
And
right.
it also, the time of year that October falls in was fitting the vibe of the lyrics. It wasn't like this sunny, happy time or whatever. It's like seasons are changing, things are dying, things are being reborn. It's like, huh, this is really cool. Like, okay, we're onto something here. But there's a case of, a guy hearing a riff downstairs. He's in his kitchen, and I'm upstairs in the bedroom. And 3 hours later, he's like, let's just try, that. You've only been beating us up with it for 10 years. And it became one of my favorite songs on the record. So it could
Amazing.
happen any number of ways.
All right. And how's the widely beloved Kramer Beretta Snake Sabo model doing?
It did really great. I think we're getting ready to do another iteration of what, and it's completely different than that particular guitar.
I
Um,
watched every review on that guitar, by the way. People love this guitar.
I look, dude, I can't believe it. Like I'm first of all, I I I I tried so hard not to do a quote unquote signature guitar because, to be honest, I don't deserve one, and so, um,
Nonsense.
well, thank you, and I trust me, I'm not looking for a compliment. I told the people at Gibson and Kramer the same thing. Can I? Let me tell you the story because it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting on how this happened. So when I was working in the McGee offices in L.A.
Yeah.
In the summertime, we used to have interns come in, and I used to just verbally abuse them in the best possible way and in the most fun way, and I became friendly with all of them because at the end of the day, I wanted them to enjoy being in this business. I wanted them to enjoy being a part of it because you know what? It's a privilege uh, to be able to be a part of music and to be involved with, for at least for me, being involved with other, these successful people that are around me, whether it's Skid Row or, obviously Doc and Scott and the people that we all worked with in the office. So whenever the interns would come in, it was always important to me to bust their balls and everything like that. But always, I'd have my arm around them, and I would be like, they're a friend to them. So there was this one kid that came in, and his name was Todd Harapiak, and he was from Winnipeg. Um, and he was just such a sweet guy. And so, I mean, all the more reason for me to break his balls. And
Sure.
so, but he was great with it. He was so great with it. And you know what? I mean, you, I'm a type of guy that I know when to pull back. Like if I see something and I'm going down a path of where maybe I'm actually hurting this person's feelings, I will absolutely pull back and let them know, look, I'm just kidding with you. I really like you, and
Yeah.
if everything's fine, whatever you need, I'm here. And so I was always available to everybody that came in too. So he was a fan of Skid Row, and he was really cool about it. He wasn't like fanboying out or anything like that. He was really cool about it, and he knew a lot about us. And he always used to talk about my Snake guitar. And so
The carved
I
one.
don't even know what's that.
You're talking about the carved one, right?
The one with the
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 one that was
Snake
like
guitar.
so I remember the one that you played on the New Jersey tour that I then saw in your house for the first time was like kind of a carved snake thing, and you caught me seeing it on a stand, and you were like, "Go ahead, pick it up, play it." And I was like, "Wow, I've seen this thing play out in so many arenas," which is different than the Kramer.
No, that was the one that you played was the Kramer
Yeah, the
because
which
I
was
don't
the
have
original,
another
and that
one.
was and that was a handmade thing, right?
Well, okay, so we when I worked in the music store,
Yeah,
there was a luthier there by the name of Paul Unkert. He was my boss. So I go, man, I've got this idea for this paint job because back then it was all about different people doing different graphics on their guitars. And I go,
yeah,
I got this idea for a paint job. It's a snake coming out of a grave, and my birth date on it, and blah 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 blah. So he goes, I know this guy who's a great artist, and he's an airbrush guy. I go, okay. I don't have any money, and we had like different guitar bodies and different guitar necks in the back, and Paul would build guitars utilizing these parts. He's
yeah.
like, don't worry about it. I'll spot it to you. So spots me this guitar body. We get in touch with this guy, Dennis Klein. Dennis Klein also happens to be friends with Rachel's older brother.
Okay,
So Dennis was a pretty eccentric kind of guy, really cool. Um, and so I explained to him what it is I want to do or what I'd like to see. And he comes back with that, and I go, "Oh my God, that's like better than I thought." Like one shot, and that was it. So all of a sudden now we have to put a neck on this, set it up, put pickups in it, Floyd Rose, blah blah. So we do all that, and we make it like our own monster, if you will. And cut to a couple years later, we get involved with the Kramer Guitar Company through the Bon Jovi guys. They're based
right.
in New Jersey. Uh, and I said, I've got this guitar that is kind of, just a sort of bastard child. Can we, and it was getting banged up. I go, can we like Kramer it? And they said, sure. So they went to work on it, and I was working with them, and we did certain things. And so they basically put their stamp on it. So I brought that guitar, and that guitar was in the Youth Gone Wild video. It was on tour with us for that whole first 2 years. And then I didn't retire it, but I started getting into some other things. Cut now back to Todd being my intern. Todd goes out of nowhere, where's that snake guitar? I'm like, what are you talking about? I go, I have no idea. He goes, dude, you need to do a signature guitar. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. End of conversation. Todd goes to work for Gibson after he leaves us. Working his way up the ladder, he becomes like a videographer for them. every once in a while he'll reach out to me and we break each other's balls, and he'll go, "When are you going to do that Snake as a signature guitar?" I'm like, "Never." So he goes to me, "I'm going to put you in touch with the CEO of Gibson. They just bought Kramer, Cesar."
Yeah.
I go, "Oh, I would love to meet him." And he goes, and a couple other people, this guy Aljon, who's overseeing Kramer, and this guy Jim DeCola, who does the pickups and things like that. I go, "Oh, in Nashville." I go, "That would be amazing." So he goes, "Let me ask you a question though. What's it going to take to do a Snake signature guitar for Kramer?" And I go, "Seriously, dude?" Um, I go, "I don't know." And then I found, and again, I'm like, "There's no way this is going to happen." I find a beautiful picture of uh, a reissue Explorer with Karina Wood, and I send him back a picture of it. I go, "It's going to take this." 3 days later, the guitar shows up at the studio that I'm at in Nashville. I go, "Oh shit, uh-oh." He goes, "Now will you meet with Cesar?" I'm like, "Absolutely." I go, "But I can't promise anything because I think it's stupid." So I meet with Cesar and Aljon and Jim, and they are as unbelievably gracious as you could ever imagine. And so we're talking about guitars, and Cesar's from Buenos Aires, and he's like, "I saw you play down there with Skid Row in '92, and I'm a huge fan," and blah blah blah. I'm like, "Wow, this is like the CEO of Gibson. Like, this is crazy." And we do the whole tour and everything like that. And at the end of that, we're back at where we started at in the office area or whatever. And he goes, "So what do you think about doing this signature guitar?" And I'm like, "Are you guys serious about this?" I go, "Really?" I go, I don't think anybody's going to be interested." I go, "It's very, 80s." I go, "It's a graphic. It's whatever." And he's like, Cesar said to me, "This would be a passion project of mine." And I'm like, "What?" And he explains, I love the band. I love your playing, blah, 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 blah. You and Scotty, and I love everything about you guys. And I want to be able to do this. And I think it would really help the Kramer brand." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Do you have the original?" I go, "Yeah, I'll send it to you guys." So I sent it out. They spec'd it out exactly as it is. And then they got in touch with Dennis Klein, the original artist, who was still in Jersey, and had him do it again, and to make it authentic. And all of a sudden, this guitar is on the market. I'm like, "This is crazy." So we've built a great relationship. I've always loved Kramer's because they not only is it a fun guitar, but they hold a special place in my heart because they were the one company that was there for us in the beginning when no one else wanted to be, associated with Skid Row. And from the very beginning, when Dennis Berardi was the owner, treated us like family, and that continues. That same attitude has continued with the current regime. So now we're planning on another one that'll be a part of, I guess, the this line of Snake Sabo guitars, but it's completely different than the one that's on the market now. And so I'm looking forward to it. And we're working out the specs and stuff like that. And I'm hoping that when we get this done, it will coincide with when we're going back out on the road. And I want to be more involved with the Kramer brand, and hopefully I could be an ambassador of sorts, because they just, again, it's got a special place for me, uh, in my spirit, my soul, and it brings back many great memories, and has created really a lot of really great memories for me in the present. So
Well, what a great surprise it turned out to be, because people really love this guitar, and it turns out the timing was perfect for it. Like, I never thought that the Steve Vai Dayglow guitars were going to become massively expensive collectible things, but they are.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
people like their shredder super strat guitars of yore. So
It's
everything
wild,
comes in good.
dude. And I look, you know what? I mean, that's often the music and instruments are cyclical.
Absolutely.
So you find something that you might have scoffed at 20 years ago, that all of a sudden you go, oh man, that was more of a reactionary opinion from outside influences as opposed to, or trends, as
Yeah, and
opposed
we
to,
we and we all got on the bandwagon. I've got a guitar across the room here that upsets everybody that lays eyes on it, and it is a real '60s strap body that's routed for a Floyd Rose, back routed, with a '50s telly neck on it, with bass frets, with EMGs, with a single volume knob, and people are like, "Oh my God, you need to return this back to what it's supposed to be." I said, "No, I do not. It's perfect the way it is."
that's so
Um,
great, dude. I love
but I
that.
I love it just because how much it agitates people. But lots of guitars got chopped back then because you made them your own, you know?
That's why Eddie, besides being the most unbelievable guitar player in the world, but look what Eddie did.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what Eddie Van Halen, that's what he did. He took a
that's it.
Strat and he just bastardized it. He did the same thing with an Explorer, or Ibanez Destroyer, actually.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what he did, man. He was like, fuck it, I don't give a shit. I'm going to make this perfect for me. That's what you're
Yep.
supposed to do.
Just a hammer, just a tool. Anyway, we got to wrap up. Snake, thank you so much for taking so much time out.
Oh,
It's
dude,
great
the
to see you.
pleasure's all mine, man. It's great to see you. Anytime you want to do this again, man. I love conversing with you. You've always been intriguing and interesting to me. So
Well, thank you, my
anytime you
friend.
want to go,
All right, I appreciate you. We'll do it again soon. Let me know if you're on this side of the country, and I'll do the same when I'm in New York.
please do, buddy. Be safe, be healthy, and as usual, all the best to you. Thank you for your time.
The Bad Decisions podcast was produced by Brock Workman of Her Dad Entertainment. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. My book, The Big Book of Bad Decisions, is available wherever books are sold. A special thanks to today's guest, Snake Sabo, for joining me today. I'm your host, Scott Nathan. Thanks for listening.